Daniel, the food is getting cold.
I know.
We used to talk at dinner. Remember? We couldn't stop talking.
Daniel!
Look, this isn't what... Don't. Please, let me explain.
Get out of my house!
I said get out!
Worse than divorce. A story of betrayal, silence, and the price of revenge. The beginning. Some punishments don't come from courts. Some don't come from fists raised in anger or words screamed across a room. Punishments arrive quietly wrapped in silence, dressed in cold civility, and they cut deeper than any wound you can see. This is the story of Daniel Reeves, a man who loved completely, lost everything, and chose a path that cost him more than he ever imagined. It started the way the best stories always do, accidentally. Daniel was 32 years old when he took the position of Associate Professor of Literature at Westfield University. He was brilliant, soft-spoken, and mildly terrifying to his students. He had a habit of pacing when he lectured, his voice rising and falling like music, turning Shakespeare into something alive and urgent. On a Tuesday morning in October, when golden leaves drifted past the tall classroom windows, a girl walked in 18 minutes late. She had short dark hair, a coffee in one hand, and absolutely no remorse on her face. "You're late," Daniel said, pausing mid-sentence. She looked up at him, not flustered, not apologetic, just calm. "I know," she said simply, and took her seat near the window. Her name was Sophie, and she was always late. For 3 months it became a small ritual. She would slip in late, he would note it. She would meet his eyes with that half smile. The class would watch them like a tennis match. But after lectures, she stayed behind asking real questions, brilliant questions, questions that kept him thinking long after she'd gone. One afternoon in December, as snow began falling outside and the building slowly emptied, she asked him why he'd chosen literature over everything else. "Because stories are the only honest thing in the world," he said. "People lie. Stories real ones never do." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, not the casual smile, but something quieter, something genuine. "I believe that too," she said softly. He was already lost. Love and vows, they were careful. Appropriate. He waited until she graduated. He asked her father's permission before he even took her to dinner. He was that kind of man, methodical, respectful, achingly sincere. They married in June of the following year. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends in a garden outside the city. Sophie wore her grandmother's earrings. Daniel wore the dark blue tie she had chosen for him because she said it matched his eyes when he was happy. For 5 years they were exactly that, happy. Not the loud theatrical happiness of people performing joy for others. The quiet, kind morning coffee shared in comfortable silence, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes no one else understood. Sophie told him once, curled against him on a rainy Sunday evening, "I never thought love could feel like coming home, but this does." He kissed the top of her head and said nothing. Because some things are too true for words. The silence between children came first Lily, then James. The house filled with noise and color, and the beautiful chaos of a growing family. But with children came more responsibility. Daniel took on an additional research fellowship. He was writing a book. He attended conferences. He graded papers at midnight. And slowly, almost invisibly, the distance crept in. It doesn't announce itself. That's the cruelest part. There's no single moment when a marriage begins to unravel. It's 100 small moments, a conversation cut short, a dinner eaten in silence, a hand that reaches for another and finds it already gone. Sophie would speak and Daniel would nod without really hearing. She would plan and he would forget. She would wait and he would arrive late, tired, apologetic, but somewhere else entirely. She stopped telling him things, not all at once, just gradually. The way a fire doesn't go out, it simply stops being fed. The other man, his name was Marcus Webb. He worked in the city finance, confident, charming in the easy way that requires no effort. They met at a gallery opening that Sophie attended alone because Daniel had a faculty meeting that ran long. Marcus was attentive, funny, present in a way Sophie hadn't felt in years. He listened. He remembered small details. He texted just to say he was thinking of her. Sophie told herself it was nothing. Then she told herself it was harmless. Then she stopped telling herself anything at all and simply let it happen. The affair lasted 4 months. She hated herself during most of it. But she was also, in some terrible, complicated way, less lonely, and loneliness, she had learned, will make people do things they never imagined themselves capable of. The door opens. Daniel came home early on a Thursday evening. A faculty lecture had been canceled. He picked up Lily and James from his sister's house and drove home with the children asleep in the back seat. He carried them inside one by one, tucking each into their beds gently. Then he climbed the stairs to the bedroom. The door was half open. He pushed it. What he saw took perhaps 3 seconds to process. And then silence. Complete, devastating silence. Sophie went pale. Marcus stood up. Neither of them spoke. Daniel looked at his wife. He looked at the man. He looked back at his wife. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back downstairs. Sophie followed, trembling. "Daniel, please let me explain." He held up one hand. Just once. She stopped. "Go," he said to Marcus. Quietly, without looking at him. Marcus left. Daniel sat down at the kitchen table. He put his hands flat on the surface. He breathed. He looked at nothing. Sophie stood in the doorway, crying. "Say something, scream at me, do something." He finally looked at her. His face was unreadable. "Be ready tomorrow morning," he said. The reckoning. She didn't sleep. She lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, bracing for lawyers, for shouting, for the word divorce to finally arrive like a verdict she deserved. But that wasn't what Daniel had planned. Marcus Webb regularly attended university meetings as an external financial consultant recently brought in for a new business partnership program. His contract contained a professional code of conduct clause. Daniel had read it 3 times the night before. He knew exactly what it said. The next morning, he walked into the department faculty meeting and waited until the room was full. Then he stood and said in a voice completely devoid of emotion, "Before we begin, I need to bring a professional matter to this committee's attention." He placed a folder on the table. Marcus sat across the room. His face changed when he saw it. Daniel explained, calmly and precisely, the conflict of interest violation Marcus had committed. He cited the clause, he cited the dates, he provided documentation. The termination was processed by afternoon. Marcus Webb, who had built his entire professional reputation in the city over 8 years, was escorted from the building. The story moved quietly but quickly through professional circles. 3 contracts fell through within a month. His name became complicated in ways that are very hard to uncomplicate. Worse than divorce. Daniel came home that evening and sat across from Sophie at the kitchen table. "Are you going to give me a divorce?" she asked. Her voice was raw. He was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said. She stared at him. "What?" "Divorce is easy, Sophie." He leaned forward slightly. "Divorce is a door. You close it and walk away. You rebuild. You start over. You get to leave. Then what? You stay. You live in this house. You see the children every day. You watch what you've broken every morning over breakfast, and every night before you sleep. You don't get to escape. That is your consequence." She stared at him for a long time. "That's not mercy," she said quietly. "No," he agreed. "It isn't." Part 8. The real punishment. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Sophie had imagined. Daniel was never cruel, never shouted, never weaponized the children. He was simply absent present in body, unreachable in every other way. He answered when she spoke. He was polite, he was courteous, he was utterly, completely gone. And the children always know. Not the details, but the temperature of a home changes, and even a 7-year-old can feel the cold. Lily stopped bringing her drawings to show both parents at the same time. James grew quieter at dinner. Sophie watched her family rearranging itself around a wound she had made, and there was no one to blame but herself. She sat alone at night, looking at herself in the mirror for a long time. She didn't recognize the woman looking back. Some prisons have walls and locks. Others are built entirely from memory and consequence. Sophie was living in the second kind. The leaving 3 months later, she left. Not dramatically. She packed 2 bags, arranged for her mother to help with the children on weekends, and told Daniel on a Sunday morning that she couldn't continue. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I stopped deserving that the night you came home early, but I can't keep living inside this silence. It's destroying whatever is left of me." He listened. He nodded once. "All right," he said. She waited for something more, some final word, some anger, some grief, anything. "That's it?" she asked. "What else is there?" She left. Final reflection. He sat in the kitchen alone after her car disappeared down the street. After a while, Lily padded downstairs in her pajamas and climbed into his lap without asking questions. He held her quietly. Then James appeared in the doorway. 7 years old, serious eyes. "Dad," he said, "did you ever forgive Mom?" Daniel looked at his son for a long time. Then he looked out the window at the empty driveway. He didn't answer. There are men who break things in their grief plates, promises other people. And then there are men like Daniel who grieve so quietly and so completely that the silence itself becomes the damage. He got his revenge. Precise, clean, carried out without raising his voice once. But the house was still empty. The children still asked questions he couldn't answer. And some nights, when the city went quiet and the lights outside flickered off one by one, he sat at that kitchen table, hands flat on the surface, exactly as he had the night everything fell apart, and he wondered whether the man who chose punishment over forgiveness had won anything at all. Sometimes the one who seeks revenge loses everything too, and sometimes the cruelest cage is the one we build around ourselves. Viral titles for USA audience. He refused to divorce her. What he did instead was far worse. She begged for divorce. He said no, and she understood why. The husband who never raised his voice and never forgave either. Chahiato image prompts, voiceover yaseo package bitaya kardetahun.